Welcome, everyone. You're listening to The Last Dinosaur, and I'm your host, Chris Aversano. This is the podcast where we explore the evolving maritime landscape and hear from the innovators leading the charge. Global trade isn't just about big ports and bigger problems. It's the daily hustle of small and mid-sized businesses trying to move goods from point A to point B without getting crushed by complexity. My guest today is Carmit Glik, CEO of Ship4wd, a digital-first freight solution built for the underdogs of the international trade. With over 2 decades of experience, Carmit has led major digital transformation projects across the logistics world. Now she's channeling that expertise to help small and medium-sized businesses take control of their supply chain journey. It's not just about tech, it's about leveling the playing field. Carmit, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, hi. Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure being here.
I'm excited to talk about this because one of the things that we have in the maritime space is everybody loves to talk about the big ship owners, the big shippers, and all those things. And we're going to take a little bit of a different tact because, frankly, the shipping world, whether it's container ships or small businesses or tankers and bulkers, are made up mostly of small, medium businesses. But before we get into that, talk a little bit about kind of your start, your beginning, and the evolution towards where you are today with Ship4wd.
Yeah. So you're totally right. We always like to, the people of the maritime like the steel and like the velocity and the big vessel, and the bigger you are, the better, right? That's what we love to do. And I actually started in at that time the biggest shipping company, Maersk, were in the beginning of my career. And I spent relatively significant time of my career in that, serving, I would say, the 500 Fortune companies with logistics services and solution over time in Asia and Europe and in the States. And at a certain point of time, I realized that if we want to welcome technology, where would it fit best? Or where can we do that with the biggest turnaround? And when I look at those wonderful customers that I've worked with all over the years, I believe there is inflation of services and products towards those. And also the focus of most of the logistics services towards those type of customers. And I've seen the small to medium size, which are around 60% actually of every economy, more or less. Don't hold me on the number. And who is choosing them, and what type of services they are getting, and can technology actually leverage the game here for those segments. And in Ship4wd, we made that choice. And by making that choice, we cut everything else. So our focus from day one is, with the digital mindset from step one, is to see how we serve best the population of small to mid-sized businesses, and literally obsessively looking at what those type of businesses are doing their day-to-day, what type of support they need, which is very different than the large corporation.
And I think that's a really fascinating view because not only are you talking about focusing on, I think you said 60% of the market. Again, it's a very long tail, however, it's a lot of little, folks moving small manufacturing goods or maybe, in process goods to make bigger or different products. But it's really interesting to see because it is such a long tail. It is a diverse
Correct.
group. I mean, it's the same exact thing with shipping. When we talk about, let's say, rolling out an application, you hear about the big ship owner with 200 ships. Maersk comes into that. CMA CGM comes into that. On the tanker side, there's a few bigger ones, or commodity side, you look at somebody like Cargill that I've had some interesting conversations with. And it's interesting because they have these big giant fleets, but yet there's so many people have one, maybe two containers or less, or even a full container. So I think it's an interesting approach. Talk a little bit about kind of some of the reception that you've had going out to some of these smaller players. I mean, smaller businesses, and I should say smaller players because it's their livelihood. And that sounds like you're talking down to them. Talk about when you go into the people that haven't been the focus of the bigger platforms, and you go into their offices and you say, I have an offering tailored for you. What is their reaction? Do you see them willing to adopt this technology? How has that been received in the marketplace from a change management point of view? Because honestly, this podcast is about shipping, but it's really change management in shipping clothes. That's what this podcast is really about.
So you chose us well, because that's what we do from day one. And I think, to be honest, when we set up our offering, we really wanted to create an umbrella that really, really talked to their challenges. We launched Ship4wd in 2001. We're looking at Corona time. We're looking at market condition that was unfavorable to everyone, but especially brutal to small to mid-sized businesses. And you're right. I don't even like to say small businesses, because owner of a business, for them, it's everything. For their family is everything. For the community and their employees, everything. And it's not small, but we don't have any other definition for this one. So we will use the common definition, which I really detest, but that's what I have to work with. And to be honest, at that time, when we came out and say, we give you space, we give you the cost, we only sell what we can deliver. So it's not that you buying for us and then you are rolled 1,000 of times, that you pay a premium on a premium. If I don't have a space, I don't sell you. The whole concept. And when we talk with customer, there was the disbelief, like, it's too good to be true. What's the catch? That's what I'm getting. It was difficult, even to kind of break that barrier of trust. How can it be? Because I'm used to be so beaten. I'm used to be so ignored. I'm used to chase, and I can't. I cannot consume this. So that was actually some of the initial feedback. And yesterday we had a round of discussion with customer, because we launched a new product. And that was, again, I heard that, I can't believe what's the catch. So I think that is the most, I would say, difficult part, to gain that trust in those businesses after their experience or their experiences for a very long time kind of shape them to distrust almost every logistics provider, or to assume the worst of such a provider. I think that's the difficulty in this arena, I would say.
Because you're taking a digital platform of, it sounds like being able to move goods and help them, almost like matching a little bit as well of a service provider to actually move it with the goods. One of the things that I kind of did a little research on was, yes, it's digital first, but you also have a little bit of a combination of having human support, right? And I think that that's one of the biggest things is we all now see, you get a bot, whether it's airline things, whether it's, what was I doing? Oh, actually, this platform a couple of days ago, I had a problem downloading something, and the first 3 minutes was communicate with the bot until I actually got a person. Then I got an email, and then they solved it, much to this platform I use, Riverside, to their credit. They got it solved, they got it downloaded, and I moved on with life. But I think that that's one of the interesting things, is having that human behind it. Talk a little bit about that kind of thinking as well. Yes, you are digital first, which is obviously where a lot of things are going, but moving beyond that and having kind of this real in-person support as well.
Indeed, when we get into building Ship4wd, it was starting with truly studying and talking with many, many founders and all business owners, and understanding the day-to-day. Basically, if you log as a business owner or logistics manager into Ship4wd, you can search your services, you can book online 24/7, you can choose to have your custom, and you can choose a pickup, and you can see the rates, and you can make your choice and be done in few minutes. Basically, you do not need a human support. Conceptually, you can actually only use the platform, and some do. And then you can see the progress of the shipment, and you can see everything online when you wish to. But when we are talking with businesses, I understand this is their livelihood, what's in that container. But the emotional detachments to that container or that LCL shipment or that air freight shipment is so big. So it's not sufficient that there is ultimately a digital platform, but you need somebody that you feel that if you have an issue, he will pick up, and not a bot and not a customer service support that you will wait 45 minutes till you get some operator to answer. And we realized that very, very early. We also realized that businesses as such, they're very busy. They're very lean. They don't have large logistics department that can handle the knowledge of that. They're lacking all of those supports that large corporation has. And this is for us was a way that if you're working on a shipment on Saturday, there will be somebody that will answer you. And if you're sending an email on Christmas because your shipment is stuck and you want to understand what's going on, somebody will answer you. So I think with that umbrella, we believe and we see it, and you can see also in the feedback of our customers that's what really gives them the comfort. And sometimes it doesn't really need it, but that's the comfort of them working with a provider that is accessible at any time. It's something that it's required for such business. They don't close the shop at 5 p.m. They do not. They work around the clock, and they need somebody that will work in their speed and in their availability. So this is where we are.
That's one of the things that people outside of shipping, and I'm taking from a biased view of maritime shipping, but clearly whether it's air freight or over the road or what have you, it's 24/7.
Yeah.
Don't, it's 24/7. There's no weekends. There's no Christmas. There's no other holidays around the world. There's no Thanksgiving coming up here in the US. You're moving good to A to B because the day after New Year's, you want your product there. Well, it just doesn't, appear overnight, right? It takes a lot of different things.
Crazy people behind the screen.
Yeah. It's just there's no, if you're into the Star Trek stuff, there's no transporters, right? It doesn't work that way. And I think that's, you point on a very key part. And I relate that to maritime side of things. If you have a ship owner, that the average ship owner owns 5 ships, that's what so, each one of her ships is important, like you said, to the family, just in the same vein of a 20-foot container is important to that person's livelihood. That could be all of first half of 2026's products out the door, right? And you're relying on those products to bring in income for 2026, so you could build out for the second half of 26 and into 27. It's a perpetual machine, right? So it's a very interesting thing. When you sit down and you talk to these, for lack of a better term, small to medium businesses, what are some of the misconceptions that they have about shipping, and how do you help them kind of demystify that and make that a little bit cleaner in general, but then also using the digital tool that you have, or maybe some other one, but if you have somebody maybe a little bit new to the shipping world, and like, how do I, boy, with tariffs, should I even bother? Am I going to get stuck with delays because the US government shut? How do you help those type of folks? Again, not the Walmarts of the world, because they have an entire floor probably someplace in Arkansas figuring it out.
Yeah, indeed. When you are opening a business, that you do everything from cleaning the toilet to signing the largest contracts that are out there and whatever is in between. So I do understand them very well. And the misconception, I think, is coming from lack of knowledge. They don't understand this world. The last few years were horrible. There was a lot of uncertainty as a business, a lot of turbulence, every day something else, especially this year with the tariff, of course, that's forcing them to recalculate their business, recalculate their strategy, understanding and learning new things. And it's very tough because you don't have that support system that Walmart has, for example. So what we can do and what we're trying to do is make things very accessible and easy, in the sense of, for example, when you book a shipment with us, there is a tariff calculator, and you're able to provide few information, and then you will know what is the taxation and duties that you that you need to pay. We have also developed a product that is DDP, which is not new, but online you are able to actually buy also a full in with a full transparency of the cost, including taxation and duties. So you don't have that issue and you know your cost in advance. Have expert call and people online that when you have question will come and support you and answer your question. So we cannot change the world and we cannot change the turbulences that happening, but I think we have a power as a company that really think fast of how can we provide customer that knowledge and access to that knowledge in a very open and transparent way. And I think that's the key, the ability to really navigate the turbulences and understanding, okay, I don't have, idea if the tariff will change. But if you sign up for, let's say, DDP product today, this is what you're going to pay. Or if you want to pay it when it's arrived to the States, this is currently the tariff and you can see it in the calculator. Let's assume on the way something happened, the tariff went up by 1% as it should have been in 1st of November, which was luckily got canceled and agreement was made for the next year. But let's assume it's on the way and like this happening in many of our shipments, we actually already provide them with the ability to get set of tariff or to get to abandoned a warehouse and then decided what to do. So there are so many solutions that one can have. And it's really about a partner that really can easily provide you that information because information is power. And I think the misconception coming for lack of information, for lack of knowledge of what's going on. And this is where stress coming up and the ability not to react fast enough to the changing situation.
I think you said something really interesting, and that is the knowledge is the power, and having a clearer idea of, I guess, for this size businesses, and then for any size business, I would say if you sum up, 2025 from a shipping, again, whether it's air freight, whether it's maybe not rail, but air, anything doing transnational shipment, I think the one word summary would be chaos, right? I mean, from a business owner point of view, every time something comes out of the White House, is it going up? Is it going down? And you need people to read tea leaves, or some cultures you read the bottom of the coffee cup, so you have all of that and maybe provide a better angle than reading the news sometimes, unfortunately. Second to that and the chaos there, what are some of the other worries that you hear when you talk to businesses looking to ship, especially internationally? Is there anything else that they're kind of worried about just in general, whether it's the digitalization side, like, oh no, I really want to have paper, I really want to have this, I really want to have that, or is it with some of the disruptions due to various conflicts around the world, like, oh, I'm really worried about transiting the Red Sea, or something. In the past, we had pirates off of West Africa and so on, or East Africa as well. What is the mindset today of some of these smaller businesses, and besides tariffs, that they are concerned about when shipping, especially internationally?
Tariff is one output of the concern when you ship internationally. There is so many. I think before COVID, we were quite stable. Yes, there were the pirates and there are the normal weather issues and so on and so forth. But more or less, I think supply chain were kind of set. You knew the players, you knew the location. And I think what happened since COVID, following the Red Sea crisis, following the tariff, that we have not really seen in the last 5 years stability to make a decision. And the new reality is unstable, just being unstable, and you're not sure where it will come from, but it will come. So I think there is a lot of discussion going on also in with small businesses. What used to be in maybe large corporate boardrooms is, where do I buy the product? How do I diversify my my supply chain? How do I create better costs and better services, maybe for different location, maybe for different suppliers? So there all was a lot of 2 years ago of offshoring on nearshoring discussion that came into life, looking at Mexico, which become one of the biggest trade from China, looking at various locations. So I think what used to be really talked about in a very, very large corporate is kind of also eat those smaller businesses or medium-sized businesses that we cannot really be certain of what we have done for the last 10 or 5 years to carry us or carry our business in the future. So what can we do actually to be more comfortable or to have alternative or to see if a certain geopolitical situation coming up in a certain location, do we have alternatives for our goods? Because again, this is our livelihood. This is not a 9-to-5 job that I'm doing. So this is really deep emotionally as well. What can we do and how can we look at our businesses in a much broader perspective than what we have done till today?
And I think that brings up, that emotional thing, because I know from small business, small, medium businesses, you probably have partners that you've dealt with in one location for, let's say, if you've been established, you deal with one partner, you have that level of trust. Now, for no fault of that partner's reason, for geopolitical, name any one of these things, you have to consider changing that person, right? And that gets into a different thing. Like, well, maybe I don't want to go 100% with this partner that we've done for 20 years. Maybe we'll dial this person down to 75, and we need to explore that 25 to get, maybe it's onshoring. Maybe we bring it back domestically or nearshoring. And I think that that's some really interesting kind of, it's global trade. It's not necessarily maritime, but it all kind of plays in. One thing I do want to talk a little bit about, pivoting a little bit here, is that you start with the dock and you start up and you're still in that kind of that phase. Talk to me a little bit about the startup world. And I always love to hear the view of people that kind of have gone from idea to start, maybe some pre-seed to some seed, and now we're moving up. Talk a little bit about what you see today and what advice you would give to folks who are looking to go down that road.
So the doc was really, when I joined, was very early stage of that VC fund. It was 2018. And at that time, there was not many VCs that was focusing on maritime and logistics. And that was very, very early for that. Today, there are actually quite a few. And at that time, at least I believe that our industry, we're not attracting talent and we're not attracting sufficient innovation. So innovation exists, and it was existing in so many domains, right? You have the fintech, and you have the cyber, and you have the automotive, and EV, and all that happening, and green, and that. And what happening with us? There was like really, the talk was not that high, and I believe that we need to somehow attract talent to look at our industry and bring even existing technologies. There's a lot of, you don't need to recreate, to orbit the cargo from Shenzhen to Washington. You can actually use a lot of technology from other domains and bring it to our domain and involve it. So the idea is really to attract talent, to look at our industry and come up with solution and support them financially, of course. So at that time, it was the first portfolio of companies that we invested. And since then, it's really growing, and we see more and more startups in our domain. And I think it's wonderful because, I think it's like happened with other domain. If you look at the beverage and food industry, right, they do not innovate anymore by themselves, but they're buying a lot of those startup that bringing something new. And I think that should be our industry go-to when they're trying to innovate, because it's very, very hard from a dinosaur to, re-innovate themselves. It doesn't happen that often. I mean, the nature of the human and the nature of our universe. And the fact that you're able to really provide platform to talent and to technology and innovation and embrace them in our industry, that's not something that happened. Unfortunately, I mean, the major players themselves, they didn't. Now, every carrier is a CVC. That's not something that happened when I joined the dock. Was not there at all, right? So this is something that I'm very proud of our ability as an industry to really hug the innovation and bring them on and bring talent. And it doesn't have to be under a certain corporation or from a certain corporation. I think in that way, our industry is really evolving. We could do faster. I would like us to move even faster, but at least I can see some changes. And for the talent out there that's looking for an industry that they can make a difference, really come. I mean, what can you do with fintech? It's kind of up there.
I had a conversation quite a few years ago, and one of the things that I always tell people is, in our industry, and again, whether you're on the more traditional side, like I'm going to be a ship operator, charter, I'm going to go to sea for a while, then do some of that. I'm going to get into marine insurance. I mean, all that stuff is all very good, and you can have a wonderful, and I still think a wonderful career. I don't think AI is replacing much in the way of what those jobs do. I mean, I think there's going to be the old argument of, I think it'll augment and maybe change, but I don't think it'll replace. But if you look at, Maritime and some of the startups, whether it's software or hardware, or even extending out to international trade and more because of what you're doing, where it could be intermodal. Trade is trillions of dollars. Be part of that. So if you can make a change in that, and I go back to something as simple as if you can improve emissions of ships by 2%, right, on a platform, whatever, or improve hull coating, or that's trillions of less CO2 in the air. And you're kind of doing that from your desk, my case in Connecticut, right? So it's this idea that you have this outsized impact as compared to working for a fintech. Okay, what are you creating, right? Here you're actually creating an interesting value that, if you want to be a little more holistic, that has a good community impact, right? It could improve the environment, what have you.
Definitely.
Um, and I think that that's kind of the appealing thing, is that it is global in nature, and that we are still in the nascent part of it. That's why it's the last dinosaur. I agree with you. It goes in fits and spurts. If you're a startup today, is there any one bit of advice that you could give her and say, hey, this is what I would think that what you should do, or this is how you need to approach it?
I think a lot of entrepreneurs and founders, they look for problems to solve. I mean, that's the first, your first step. You look for a problem to solve. And as you said, there's so many in our industry. And if we're looking at freight, we're talking about $2 trillion US business. It's massive. You do not need to own 60% of it to be. You need to make a certain difference, a certain benefits, and that's already put you in a different place, and it can actually do good. It can actually do good for the world, and I think that innovators and founders that looking for problems to talk with logistics people to understand where they can actually make a real difference. I think sometimes in our industry, it's tough because whatever I will do under the technology on the platform, for example, I actually need physically to move cargo from one place to another. Yeah, that we should not forget. So there is a service element here that till I will be able to orbit that good from one place to another, I need to physically move it. And I think sometimes innovators, startups, they want to orbit, but we're not there. So they need to understand in our industry as one that there is a physical part, and how can you make it better? And I think that that's part that need to really, really consider, because I'm getting I'm talking with a lot of talent, some founders, some looking at doing business in our industry. And sometimes they're forgetting the basic.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
River.
Yeah. And that it's still, that part you're never going to get rid of, at least not that I'm aware of. You're always going to have problems. And I think it goes back to the original thing that we talked about in the beginning. And that is real simple. It is a 24/7, 365, or, 2 years from now, 366 days a year to getting stuff done, right? And moving goods. And you're going to have problems, and you could have problems in New York City or West Africa or the eastern part of Russia or wherever. It's pretty much the same problem. but just sugar coated, whether it's weather, whether it's port delays, whether it's customs delays. And they can't ever forget that, because it goes back to the other thing, is that is somebody's livelihood on that container, or waiting to get offloaded from an air, a box from an air freight, or what have you. Somebody's blood, sweat, and tears went into there. And that is a tangible thing, right? And that's what we can't forget. I love to wrap this up asking, busy person, you said you had meetings yesterday with clients. Is there anything interesting that you're reading? And you could say, man, I listen to audiobooks, I write. I've had a couple of people say they're writing some stuff, which was kind of cool. But is there anything that you're reading, or maybe not now, but recently, that you'd like to share?
I have to say that where I get the inspiration, and that's why I always come back, is talking with as many, and conversation with as many business owner, and understanding. For example, when we started in Ship4wd, we focus on the end-to-end logistics. But when I talk with the owners of businesses, so read and also listen to a lot of podcasts, but in them, when talking with them, they don't look at their supply chain as shipping from A to B. They're actually looking at supply chain for actually sourcing products, for finding suppliers, for the time from that idea to the market. That concept we, as logistics provider, have never considered. So what we have done in Ship4wd is actually we enter also sourcing solution into the platform. And that I owe to really conversation and discussion with the business owner, that to say, you defining logistics, but our definition is different. And it took me a lot to unlearn from 25 years of experience, to really unlearn and relearn the way they consider what is logistics. Logistics do not start in Shenzhen port. Or Yantian port, for example. It starts with actually finding a supplier for my goods, getting it tested, getting a sample, getting my product. It takes me 6 months to get a product into market since I started. That might be already the time that the product is not relevant anymore in the market. And how do I source with the best cost and best time? And on the discussion of sourcing, that is integrated part in supply chain, especially for those small, mid-sized businesses. That's something that I completely learned and changed my view of supply chain and also Ship4wd product.
It is fascinating to hear, because I think you're right. I think we would look at where the action takes place, but like you said, the action has to take place well before we
So,
see the effort, see the fruit. And it almost reminds me a little bit, if anybody's ever studied accidents, they compare it to an iceberg, right? So when you have an accident, you only see the accident is really the tip of the iceberg. But then you look underneath, and there's all these other things that has to go into to have the accident. So maybe this is, to quote Bob Ross, that I used to have a little bobblehead doll of Bob Ross back. Maybe this is the happy accident, or a pleasant accident of actually global trade, right? You have to do all these things before you actually see where a product like Ship4wd or the actual ship takes place. It's only the tip of the iceberg. All these other things have to happen. And it sounds like something that you've learned over your experience, and not necessarily through a book. So I appreciate that answer. That's always a good one. Carmit, this was a fantastic conversation. I appreciate hearing your journey, hearing the company's journey, and really hearing a journey about the businesses that, like the small ship owners, don't get a lot of light, because everybody wants to focus on Walmart or Target or Ford or whatever in the shipping world. And I appreciate you bringing those perspective to light. And thank you for coming on the podcast.
thank you, Christopher. It was a pleasure. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much.